friend, and welcome back to the podcast. It is great to have you here joining us as we're going through this journey. Just want to say greatly grateful, truly grateful that I have you with me and tuning in, and thank you for pushing that play button and continuing on to listen and be a part of this this amazing yet I would say adventurous journey that I'm going through, but I'm glad that you are here and being a part of this. So, all right, so welcome back. And so today's episode is titled Learning to Trust Yourself Again. And I kind of like this one because this one really kind of hits at home. It kind of hits into the center core of the being of who I am and what I'm going through and all the adventure that I'm taking. So it's learning to trust yourself again. And so I'm going to start off by saying something very gently, okay? Very gently. If trusting yourself feels hard right now, it doesn't mean you're broken, friend. Okay? If trusting yourself feels difficult or hard right now, it doesn't mean you're broken. What this means is you've become strong for a very long time, right? It means that you've been strong for a very long time. So that's what I want to start off with. All right. So what happens is that during this type of process is most people don't lose self-trust because they're incapable. They lose it because they had to survive. They had to survive through the things. And what they did is they learned to override their instincts. They learned to prioritize expectations. And they also learned to do what was required instead of what was true. So that's why they lose this, because they learn how to survive this way. And then with time and over time, those small little choices begin to create this distance between who you are and what you feel. All right. So those small little decisions, they start to open that gap of between who you are and what you feel. And so that distance is what we will call not trusting yourself. So that gap that starts to create between who you are and what you feel, that is the not trusting yourself gap. Okay? So after years of overriding yourself and making choices feel risky, you begin to have these questions in your head of, what if I'm wrong? That has been a question that has come across in the last couple of days, right? For me, it has come across a couple of times in my thought process is, what if I was wrong? What if I misread this? Like, what if I misread this move? And what if I mess it up? What if I don't stay consistent and I screw all of this up? And you know what's going to happen? And that's because fear doesn't mean you're incompetent, okay? Fear doesn't mean you're incompetent. Those questions, what they do is they start to bring in where you start to analyze and you start to understand the meaning of your core compass, which hasn't been listened to in a long time. And now that inner core compass, it's starting to speak again. Right? The compass within you is now starting to speak because you haven't listened to it in such a long time. One of the biggest misunderstandings about our intuition is that it should be loud. People think that our intuition should be this boisterous, loud voice or feeling. But I'm going to tell you that intuition is often quiet. Intuition is calm and intuition is neutral. Think about the times that when you're like in the shower or when you're driving in your car, the moments that you really get into autopilot and your intuition, you start to get these thoughts that just pop in, right? They're not loud. It's not, hey, I'm here. No, it speaks to you in a soft, calm voice and it says, hey, have you ever thought about this idea? Hey, you're feeling this, so let me share something with you that maybe you might want to take this action. So it's very calm and very neutral. One thing about tuition, it does not beg. It does not panic. What intuition does is it offers information. It offers the information of the moves and decisions that you need to make. But when you've lived in urgency, which is very loud, that quiet intuition voice can feel even harder to hear. Because the urgency noise is so loud that your intuition is very soft-spoken, it's very calm, it's very neutral, it's trying to speak, but because we're so caught into the chaos and the drama and the urgency and the fear, our intuition is difficult to hear because it's calm and it's softer. But I'm going to tell you, it doesn't mean that it's not there, because it's there. All right? Don't think that your intuition is not there. It is there. So when we start to build this self-trust, it doesn't come back through big leaps. I mean, we live so much where we want the showmanship, right? We want it to be like in our face, loud and boisterous. We want it to be just like there, so we're aware of it, right? Self-trust doesn't do that. It comes back to you in small, consistent yeses to yourself. It comes back in small, consistent yeses to yourself. Choosing to rest when you're tired is your intuition telling you, you need this. Saying no to something when it feels off is your intuition speaking to you. Listening to your body when it says you need to slow down, that is your intuition. Ego, however, will try you. You got this. Push through this. You need this adrenaline. You need this momentum. If you don't do this, it's going to make you feel guilty. But your intuition, which is in alignment with God, Source, Creator, Universe, it is going to be soft, and it's going to tell you, hey, you need to slow down because I'm in tune with your body. I know your body. You need to slow down. So every time you do that, you're rebuilding the relationship with your intuition, and you're rebuilding the relationship with yourself. Now, when we're doing this work and we're moving into this new identity, this purpose over a paycheck, sometimes doubt isn't always the enemy. Sometimes doubt is a protective part of yourself saying, I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want to get hurt again. So instead of trying to fight off the doubt, okay? So instead of trying to make doubt the enemy and fight it off, stop and ask yourself this question. What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? Because what's going to happen when you ask that charged question, what am I afraid of? That question is going to turn this internal conflict into an internal dialogue, which is where we want to go, right? And when we start to have this internal dialogue, this is where we start to build trust. This is where we start to build trust with ourselves. One of the biggest myths is that self-trust means certainty. That is one of the biggest myths about self-trust, that it needs to be certain. And it doesn't. What does self-trust actually mean? Self-trust means I'll listen. Self-trust means I will make the adjustments. And self-trust will say I take responsibility. You may not need to know the whole path, friend. Many of us will do. I'm the same way. Sometimes I need to know the whole path. But self-trust is going to say you don't need to know it. What you need to do is you need to stay in relationship with yourself as this all unfolds. You need to stay in the relationship with your self-trust as it unfolds. There are going to be times when you're feeling unsure. Okay? I want you to know this. You don't have to get everything right. Friend, don't get fixated on trying to get everything right. Don't. Because that is going to cost more in the long run than if you just stay present. Just let it unfold. Change that fear and doubt into excitement, into a surprise. And when things start to unfold, let the feeling of joy, excitement, happiness, those higher vibration feelings, let those resonate. Let those be present with you. Because I'm going to tell you that self-trust is built by staying, especially when things start to become unclear. You don't either have self-trust or not. Okay? You don't either have it or not. What you do is you have to practice it. Understand that every small choice matters, every pause, and every honest moment. Those will all add up into the building of the foundation of self-trust. You must practice it. Every small choice, every pause, every honest moment. That's what's going to be those moments that will add up in the self-trust. If you ever catch yourself asking or saying, can I trust myself? You need to reframe that question. You need to reframe that question and say, can I stay with myself? Can I stay with myself? Because by asking that question, you'll start to discover that that's where trust actually lives. Can I stay with myself? Can I be this new identity that I'm moving into? Can I be this purpose over a paycheck identity? Okay? Don't ask yourself, can I trust myself? You got to ask yourself, can I stay with myself? Whew. I know that one was a deep one. That one really, just by recording this today, I'm just like, wow, right? Again, this is my therapy for myself during this process of moving from a paycheck into my purpose. This is my therapy for myself as well. Trust me. All right. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about why boundaries are the new stability and how we need to protect our energy as we're rebuilding this new life, right? That's what we're going to talk about in our next episode. As always, if this episode resonated with you, make sure you leave a rating or a comment. Make sure you're following the podcast so you can stay in tuned with us as we have new episodes coming out and we continue this talk and journey, and stay with me in this journey. Share this out with friends, families, colleagues, people who may need to hear this. If they're in the process of contemplating and moving from the old self into the new self of this purpose over a paycheck, share it out. That's why I'm doing this podcast, is to help connect with people who may be going on with some type of journey like this. All right. I want you to remember this as we leave this episode. Trust doesn't return all at once. Trust returns one small yes at a time. All right, friend. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being here. I'm truly grateful and I love you. And I'll talk to you soon.